What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the Week 13 college football betting preview. Stuck in with me, as always, is Colin Wilson. We got Thursday football, Friday football, Saturday football. Ready to roll?
The BC Boys once said no sleep till Brooklyn. You and I, no sleep till Turkey. And then even that's just a small nap before we have a couple live shows this weekend. And it's sad to say goodbye to Maction tonight, where we finally got to see Northern Illinois not come back. I'm glad that my under held there at 63, but goodbye, Mac. Hello, a full slate of games and a college football playoff picture that's about to completely change.
Yeah, I finally beat a backup quarterback, and I finally beat Northern Illinois. It took me pretty much the entire season. So now the next task is to get Kent State home for our futures and get them to play Northern Illinois and hopefully not get heartbroken. But they got to get through Miami, Ohio first. We'll get to that. We have so many games to get to. Best bets for Friday, best bets for Saturday, Moneyline dogs, and we're going to go through almost everything here. Everything on the board to have you covered all weekend. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. All right, there's no look ahead or look away. Yeah, there's a couple different angles that will kind of mix in throughout, but there's no reason to do a whole segment on. So let's just jump right in to our 4 marquee games of the weekend, and they are 4 historic rivalries. All right, let's start in the Big Ten with the game. Ohio State travels to Ann Arbor, fresh off an absolute beatdown of fellow in-state school, Michigan State. They will look to finish the job here and punch a ticket to the Big Ten championship. But Michigan will be looking to play spoiler and also potentially try to get to the college football playoff. This is the 117th meeting between these two schools. First came in 1897. Michigan leads 58, 51, and 6. The largest victory came in 1902. Michigan won 86-0. That might arguably is the greatest college football team of all time. I don't know anything about it, but they also beat Michigan State then 119-0 that year. They beat Iowa 107-0. For the season, they allowed just 12 points, and they outscored their 11 opponents 644-12 with 9 shutouts. I don't know who was on that team, but that's the largest win ever. Longest streak ever was Michigan. That 1902 Michigan team was part of it. They won 9 in a row between 1901 and 1909. Ohio State's won 8 in a row. So they're looking to match that. And by the way, Michigan fans and Ohio State fans always watch this. It's 58, 51, 6. Ohio State's been creeping up here in the overall season series. This game will obviously, as always, every year, it's at noon on Fox. Michigan is an 8.5 point home dog. We've seen this line flip around, so we've seen it go touchdown at 7.5, 8, 8.5. The look ahead was around 6, 6.5. What I find interesting is that it breezed through the 7 compared to the look ahead market because Ohio State looks so impressive. But I mean, this is what I was expecting Ohio State to do that against one of the worst pass defenses in Power 5. Michigan also dominated too. So I was curious to see that. Total sitting at 64.5. I think the biggest question here is, can Michigan's secondary, which grades out well, right across the board, if you look at their pass efficiency numbers, if you look at their individual metrics, grades out well. But, they faced a pretty explosive Western Michigan team, but it's a MAC team. They faced Washington, Northern Illinois, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Northwestern, Michigan State put up 37, Indiana, Penn State and weather, and then that fraud Maryland. So the schedule of opposing pass offenses hasn't necessarily been the biggest gauntlet that you'll ever come across. So I think that's the handicap here, is deciphering, okay, we can go back to those Don Brown defenses, right? And then Ohio State would just run those crossers, and then didn't matter how good the Michigan defense looked. As soon as they came up across Ohio State, they would get torched. And to be fair, this is your Heisman frontrunner in C.J. Stroud and the best receiving core in the country. The other side of the ball, Michigan wants to run the ball. That's Ohio State's strength as a defense. Can Michigan hit some plays and take advantage of some potential weak spots in the Ohio State secondary? I think that's ultimately the handicap. What do you see here?
Yeah, I think the handicap is the coverage, because you talked about Don Brown and he would run man. He would send 40% blitz and run man. That was a recipe for absolute disaster. And you're right.
Quick crossers in space all day. And then.
Yes. And I think that's what the handicap should be. There's going to be a lot of other content places out there. They're just going to, throw out shit that doesn't matter. So let's get down to it. Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator, comes from the Ravens. He's run a 3-3-5 base. From a very high level, that's what he's run schematically, but he switches between man. He runs zone. He runs pattern routes. Ryan Day called this on Monday a very complicated defense to attack from a secondary perspective. Michigan is 9th in coverage for a reason. They have been able to shut down opposing passing attacks. Now, Stuck, you mentioned, the level of competition that they've gone up against, but they are a multiple front that can switch in and out of any kind of defensive scheme. If they need to change after one drive or two drives, they can do that. And some of the numbers that they've put up individually as for at the cornerback position and at safety are extremely impressive from an individual standpoint and grading. So I think what you have to do first is start with Ohio State and say, did anybody give them any problems over the last 2 months from the passing game perspective? Well, wouldn't you know it?
Corn, baby.
Our favorite team to bet on this year, Nebraska. And I just didn't even realize this till I did a deep dive on this. CJ Stroud has not had a turnover-worthy play since mid-September, I think, against Tulsa. But he had 4 of them against Nebraska. Now, why is it Nebraska running a 3-4 scheme, usually a heavy blitz with Eric Shenander? Why is that the game where CJ Stroud had 4 turnover-worthy plays, but over the past 9 games, he's had none? What is it that makes Nebraska so much more special? So if you dive into the game plan, they didn't blitz him. They let off the pressure. They backed up a few guys off the line of scrimmage. They put more guys in the secondary to control the throws. Now, I know Chris Olave, they weren't at full strength with their wide receivers, but that doesn't forgive CJ Stroud for having 4 turnover-worthy throws, more than half than he's had the entire season. And that was going up against JoJo DeMond. Nebraska, I mean, they just completely shut CJ Stroud down. He hasn't faced a set of corners like Michigan's DJ Turner and Vincent Gray. Both rank in the top 100 individually for all corners in PFF. You add in safety Brad Hawkins, individually, he grades as 18th best safety in college football. So what Nebraska was able to do was take their foot off the gas with the blitz, put more guys back, and look for any kind of routes that they want to run. And CJ Stroud had his worst day. Now, you could do this if you're Michigan. Why? Because you have 2 of the best defensive line players in the nation with Ajabo and Hutchinson. That's all you need for pressure. You don't have to send 5 guys. You don't have to send 4 guys. These 2 are enough for that entire offensive line. And when you look at that offensive line, there are offensive linemen that have had problems with pass blocking, with run blocking, and that's just going to be a huge issue against this Michigan defense. So if you go to the other side of the ball, and so when we say the handicap really is what Michigan can do in the secondary, I 100% believe it. Because of the grading of the cornerbacks and the safeties, I believe they can contain what we've seen the last couple of weeks out of Ohio State. This isn't Purdue, and we already knew Michigan State gave up a ton of explosive plays. I mean, that was no shocker to anybody. I mean, we weren't shocked at all what happened in that game. So Michigan's offense, to me, is the real deal. I fully expect Blake Corum to play alongside Hassan Haskins. They're going to give Ohio State's front 7 a lot of issues. The Buckeyes are 69th in stuff rate, going up against the Wolverines that are 5th in stuff rate on offense, number 1 in havoc allowed. They do not make mistakes. They don't allow anybody to tackle them in the backfield. They don't fumble the ball. This is a very disciplined unit. And also,
it's a well-coached team. It's good special teams too. Good punter, good kicker. They don't turn it over. Now the question is, can they just have to stay close doing that or in the lead, because then you kind of have to if you get too far behind here, that's what you can't have happen, because then Michigan has to come out of what they are and change their identity. And then all of a sudden you might have to start forcing some throws. So the beginning of this game is huge.
We think Ohio State's defense is good enough to shut down any kind of explosive attack from anybody. I mean, it's not Michigan's bread and butter, and they don't want to do that. But they're
going to have to throw here. They
might have to throw, but I think they can run all day. I simply think they can run all day. They can control the clock, and I think they're going to play well in the secondary, and they're going to cover any spread above 7. Now, the buy point for me is 7. That's it. So I'm taking the Wolverines. I think they keep it close. The number just moved way too much. I mean, a Vegas shop was offering this at 4.5 at the end of last week. So, I mean, it's quite the move.
I was potentially looking at the under here, but because I figured that Michigan's their objective here, and what I mean when I said they're going to have to throw is like they're going to have to hit some passes. Like you're going to have to hit some explosive passes in this game. But their objective is going to be, I assume, is to shorten this game and keep the Ohio State offense off of the field, right? Run the play clock down, ball control offense, field position, and then they have to hope that their defense is good enough. My only concern is, like I said, the lack of competition that they face. But does Ohio State, do they try to use tempo like Michigan State did? Like Penn State can't run the ball. So I talked about this before the Penn State game. So it didn't really matter. But during that Michigan State game, and you said it, like they have multiple packages. They were trying to sub in for like, all right, we need our faster guys in for pass play. Oh, wait, we got to get some bigger guys in there because they're probably going to run it to Walker. And then Michigan State was using tempo, and it was really, does Ohio State use that here? Because they could have some success running the ball. That is the weakness statistically of this Michigan defense. I hope that obviously this line, like I said, both teams exceeded expectations last week. They both crushed their opponent as they were expected to do. They were both similar, whatever, right? 17, 18, 19-point favorites. And, Ohio State shredded like we thought. And then, you get this line going through a key number. So I do think that there's some value in Michigan. I make the line around 6.5. Am I running to bet it? No, not yet. Am I running to bet the under? Not yet. But if we do get a 10, I would love to jump in on Michigan at 10. If this hits 65, I would like to get on under 65 or 65.5. We're recording this on Tuesday, by the way, so we can have this out to you for Thanksgiving. So a lot can change. We still have to dig into some things. That's why we're going to have a live show on Friday and Saturday morning. Also the Action Network app and actionnetwork.com. So as of right now, it's hold for me. Keep digging a little bit. Your play here. Did you put a play in yet?
Oh yeah, I've already shoved a nickel across the counter on Michigan at 8. I would buy it again at 7.5. I'd play it for less at 7, and I think it's correlated though, right? I think the total's too high also. But if you like Michigan, you like the under. If you like Ohio State, then you like the over. So we'll see if anything changes with what the market tells us.
Look at you siding with Bodog Jim. Our caller is going to be very happy, but I lean that way too. I think that's where the value is. There's not enough for me yet to jump in with some of the questions I have, but I'm going to keep digging there. All right, let's move on to the Big 12. Bedlam, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's a 4-point favorite, over under 50. This is the 116th edition of Bedlam. Oklahoma won the first meeting 75-0 back in 1904. Oklahoma leads the all-time series 90-18 and 7 ties. They also own the longest winning streak of 19 that spanned from like the late 40s to the 60s. They've currently won 6 in a row, and they've owned Gundy. Gundy's 2-14 straight up in this series and 4-12 against the spread. He actually has been favored 3 times. I think 2017 short favorite, 2011 and 2012. There's a book called Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. In that book, have you read it or heard of it?
No, it's in I wrote this. I wrote Bedlam up for Action Network, and I immediately talked about the soup. Go ahead.
The soup, yeah. So the mob fixed this were apparently fixed the game back in 1954. The mob, what they did is they convinced a chef that was feeding the team to put laxatives in all of the Oklahoma players' soups. And they apparently all had like explosive diarrhea and were sick. And they won. Oklahoma won. They won 14-0. But the spread was 20.5. So the plan worked. Don't know if it's an urban legend or not. But this is obviously a huge game because both teams still have hopes of getting to the college football playoff. I think Oklahoma State probably has a better chance right now. But if either wins out, they're going to at least be in the discussion, and especially if they get help elsewhere. When I look at this game, first, let's go back to Oklahoma, Iowa State last week. I would bet Iowa State 100 out of 100 times again. There was 5 or 6 plays, fluke plays, fumbles, fourth down swings that just all went Oklahoma's way. And Caleb Williams, your boy, he's not ready right now. I was digging at his box scores. It's like, all right, he struggled a little bit against Kansas. Yeah, he torched Texas Tech, so do a lot of people. And then against Baylor and Iowa State, 17 of 36 combined. That's sub 50% for a total across 2 games of 229 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 7 sacks, and a couple of bad fumbles. Okay, Baylor, good defense. Iowa State, good defense. Well, guess what? You're about to go up against a great defense, maybe the second best defense in the country behind Georgia. The Oklahoma State defense is balling. They have pros in that secondary, excellent safeties across the board. Jim Knowles, I hope, gets the Broyles Award as the best assistant coach in college football. That defense can get after the quarterback. It can cover. There are really no weaknesses. The offense has been better. Still have questions about it. I mean, Tay Martin's healthy. I don't think they're going to be able to run much against Oklahoma. The Oklahoma defense, which was really piss poor for long stretches of the season, has started trending upward. And I think that has to do with health. Woody Washington back. You saw Redmond back on the defensive line. Graham back at corner. Turner Yell back. I mean, they just had a lot of players that were in and out. A linebacker too. So, look, I don't see this Oklahoma offense doing anything. I think this Oklahoma State defense is that good, and Caleb Williams is struggling that much. And I think Oklahoma's defense can hold its own against an Oklahoma State offense that's not going to wow you. I think Oklahoma State wins this by 2 touchdowns, but I make it around 4 or 5. Actually, I make it like 5.5 after major adjustments of looking back over the past couple weeks. I want to get some exposure to Oklahoma State somehow. My play for now is the under. I think the Oklahoma State defense is that good. The Oklahoma offense is being overvalued here. And the Oklahoma defense, it's not being accounted for the fact that they've gotten a lot healthier. And I think that they're on an upward trajectory here. So give me the Bedlam under. I think it's sitting at 50.5 right now. I like it anything at 50 or above. What say you?
I will say with confidence that this is the second best defense in the nation. And I think the market has spoken. This is a number that opened up -1, flew through -3. We have a book in Jersey, as you and I are recording, that's at 4.5. If you go out to the Sagarin ratings, which not only does a power rating, but it does a recency weighted rating where it only considers the last couple of games, they're up to -6 in this game. And I know that's really hard for people that believe in the Sooners and believe in Oklahoma and think that the college football playoff is always going to be this certain group of teams. But I'm here to tell everybody, like I've said in the college football write-up the last 3 weeks for the playoff and who has value, Oklahoma State can absolutely go to the playoff. There is no reason this defense cannot carry them through these last 2 weeks. So when you mention Caleb Williams having problems, it's not looking good right now. Oklahoma trailed Kansas in the fourth quarter. They had half of their rushing attempts stuffed by Baylor. They needed Brock Purdy to fumble a scoop and score before halftime against Iowa State. Fumble luck is a part of the Sooners' identity. 12 fumbles this season. They've recovered all of them except for 1. Tell me how great that ball bounces for Oklahoma. The offensive numbers are elite. I mean, they're 5th in offensive finishing drives. They're 10th in passing down success rate. There's two things that have to be addressed, though, with this Oklahoma offense. Havoc allowed, and a stat that we used on Alabama in 2020, momentum killer rate. Because this Oklahoma offense has shades of being elite, and then they have a handful of drives where they look sloppy and lost. And the Sooners are 85th in havoc allowed because of the 12 fumbles, and they've allowed 63 tackles for loss. That is a lot. That's not good against a Cowboys defense that is 4th in the nation in stuff rate. They will be in your backfield in a New York minute. The Sooners consistently have 10-plus yard penalties. One of those variables that's in momentum killer rate, which includes like interceptions, fumbles, field goal misses. The Sooners have a lot of things creeping up where they're shooting themselves in the foot offensively. The offense is elite, but they can fall off a table really fast. It's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing with them. What should worry anyone that has a Sooners ticket is the defense. I mean, specifically the secondary. Oklahoma does not have a single cornerback graded in the top 200 players in PFF. For Oklahoma State with Tay Martin, he's top 30 in FBS wide receivers that have at least 70 targets. I mean, Tay Martin and that whole group of receivers are going to get down the field. But the big story this season for Oklahoma State, I mean, if you want the whole Jim Knowles thing, I'm getting there, the offense and Spencer Sanders. This is the best season Spencer Sanders has ever put up. In previous seasons, when he had Tylan Wallace and Chuba Hubbard, it was always about his pocket awareness, his fumbles, his footwork. This season, increased his adjusted completion percentage when he's blitzed from 60% to 75%. There is no difference if you blitz Spencer Sanders or if you don't. He posts the same adjusted completion rate percentage. He has had a massive increase in efficiency. Then we get to the Cowboys defense. And when I say they're second, I go back to the momentum killer rate. They are second in almost every defensive category. Only Georgia has allowed less red zone attempts. Think about that. You can't even get to the red zone on Oklahoma State. They've only allowed like 23, and the Pokes are 17th in opponent red zone touchdown percentage. They don't allow you to score touchdowns. No defense in the country generates more 3-and-outs and hard stops than Oklahoma State. So if you have thoughts of, well, at 4, I think I should buy Oklahoma. At 5, I think I should buy Oklahoma. No one generates more 3-and-outs than Oklahoma State. And Stucky, I'll be honest, I don't know the ceiling. Like when you say I think they can win by 14, I don't know the ceiling of this Oklahoma State team. I know the floor. I know a 3-point loss to Iowa State. I know the limitations of the offense. I see how bad they are at running the ball outside the top 100 in rushing success rate. But Spencer Sanders is fine when he's got pressure. That didn't used to be the case. His footwork is fine. And this defense is playing out of their mind. They're playing just a shade below Georgia. So I'm with you. I'm in on Oklahoma State, and I don't know their ceiling.
Yeah, they are now, let's see, they now lead the nation in sacks, tackles for loss, third down defense. They're top 5 in scoring defense, number 2, total defense, number 3, rushing defense, number 4, first down defense, number 4. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, they get tons of pressure, and they're just so strong and physical on the back end with especially those safeties, but they can just blanket you. And I think Caleb Williams is in for a long day.
The Colin Oliver kid, the freshman on the defensive line, he just eats offensive linemen for breakfast. I mean, it's some of the sickest. I mean, you watch film on these guys. It's taken a few weeks to get through this trudge of the Big 12, but I mean, I've been piping up on the Cowboys for a couple weeks now. This defense is insane, and it can carry them all the way to the college football playoff.
All right, let's move on to the SEC. And let's talk a little Iron Bowl. Alabama at Auburn. Auburn's a 19.5-point home dog. Total 56. Opened up at, I think, a place or two at like way lower, at 50, 51. And got immediately bet up. This is the 86th Iron Bowl meeting. And by the way, we say Iron Bowl. Think about why it's called the Iron Bowl. Well, they used to play this in Birmingham, which is known for its steel industry. And that's how it's got its name. The first meeting happened in 1893. Bama leads 47-37 with one tie. Auburn's won 3 of the past 4 at home, though, including the past 2. Never forget the kick 6. That's in our intro. And they're 6-2 against the spread at home in this series since 2005. Weird things happen at Jordan-Hare, especially at night. my question here is, I can't figure out Alabama. I tried to bet them last week. They are so Jekyll and Hyde, where they have flaws, and then some weeks they don't show up, other weeks they don't. I think they just wait to see who I bet and then act accordingly. But I only can figure them out against like Mercer team total over. That was fun for $20, whatever I could get that on that. So I can't figure out Alabama. The question, sometimes they have lapses in coverage. The offensive line is down. The question here becomes, can Finley take advantage of Alabama's secondary, and/or can Tank Bigsby, who ran pretty well last week, get it going on the ground to keep the Alabama offense off of the field? And on the other side of the ball, can Auburn secondary, which has talent, but it's been slipping in pass coverage of late, can it slow down Alabama? And I'm worried about Finley, especially Auburn just doesn't have great receivers. You compare the receiving cores of these two teams, and it's pretty drastic. And I'm worried a little bit about the Auburn defensive backfield and what I've seen in recent weeks. But at the end of the day, and this generally doesn't work out well for me, this number's too high. So if I just want to from a pure numbers perspective, I have to take Auburn. But that probably won't end well. If I got a 21, 100% on Auburn right now, right away. 20, probably 19 and a half, a little dicier. Help me out here, because I can't figure out Alabama.
This was a clear bet for me. Like I saw this. If it doesn't cash, I'll be surprised. I mean, usually, when you're a gambler or you're an investor in sports, you can't go in it with blinders and say this is absolutely the way it's going to happen. You have to be able to shoot holes in your theory, and you have to back it up with data. This one, I'm not so sure I can see the downside in the bet. So the number I project is at 12. So of course you're getting this inflated tax. It's similar to Arkansas, right? We're hanging below 3 scores, no resistance in the number, can't find any public support for the dog. Auburn's on a 3-game losing streak, and there is a ton of nitpicking going on from the local media, specifically about how this team performs as the game goes on. And Harsin is coming under a lot of criticism. I mean, there was the vaccine, there was firing of the wide receivers coach. Now we're on a 3-game losing streak. This is not Boise and the Mountain West. You are going to have to earn your paycheck. Auburn led South Carolina 14-0 in the first quarter and then scored 3 points for the rest of the game. Some really bad play calling. They had a 4th and 1 call.
4th and 1, they threw it up in the air, right?
And they threw it in the air with TJ Finley when you had a Tank Bigsby game where he went for 160-something yards. He was absolutely tearing the Gamecocks apart. I don't know what that play calling was. So Harsin deserves to get chewed out. And one of the key stats that we like to source is the middle 8. And that's where you look at the point differential 4 minutes before half, 4 minutes after half. This is where Harsin is not earning his $5 million plus. Alabama second in the nation in the middle 8. Auburn is 107th in the middle 8. Games have completely fallen apart in the middle 8 for Auburn this season. And that extends into the second half. It's just not a middle 8 problem. It's a second half problem. You go back to Penn State, you go back to any game. The longer it goes, they get terrible. That's a reflection of coaching and not making adjustments. Maybe you can get away without making adjustments in the Mountain West, but this is the SEC, which is kind of like the NFL. The NFL can change their game plan on a dime. That's how coaches get up to the NFL. Drive by drive, they're looking at iPads, they're looking at formations, they're making changes. Harsin's not doing that at all. There's one script, and we're doing it the entire game. And if you can't, change on the fly, college football teams, they script 3 drives. After that, they try to change it. Harsin doesn't change anything. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Alabama is going to run away with this game. The Tide are outside the top 50 in pass blocking, line yards, havoc allowed on offense. And Saban was asked at his presser on Monday, are you making any more changes to the offensive line? Without naming any names, Saban just throws them out there. The same guys I've been talking about on this podcast. I think Darian Dalcourt, Chris Owens, and Damian George, they're solid, and there will be no changes to the offensive line for the rest of the season. I got news for you. The grading for the run blocking and the pass blocking says a completely different story about those 3 players. So Saban says that's not going to change, and that is a point of emphasis and a point of attack for that Auburn can take advantage of. But Bryce Young I figured it out now. You called him captain check down earlier in the season. I was wondering why we're never throwing past 20 yards down the field. And I figured it out. Bryce Young is essentially competing in the world championship of darts every week. He is waiting for the defense to expose themselves. He looks for the open spot, and that's where he goes. And he lets the explosive players do their work. So it's not that Bryce Young doesn't have the arm, and it's not that Bryce Young doesn't have the decision-making. He's essentially a glorified darts player. That's all he's been. So South Carolina beat Auburn with just 10 of 15 passing and 3 explosive plays. I'm still like, this box score amazes me that they won this game. But here's the most important thing. They didn't target Roger McCreary once. 0 times they went after him. They went after Smoke Monday once. They attacked every other player in the secondary. And I guarantee that Alabama saw that. Saw what South Carolina did.
McCreary's been great all year.
McCreary is one of the best in the nation. And South Carolina said, F it, we're not going to even screw with this guy. We're going elsewhere. And it worked for him. Alabama and Auburn are both ranked top 13 in first quarter point differential. These two teams love to get points on the board fast. Harsin will be completely outcoached in this game. I'm staying away from the very inflated point spread, but the first half over and the first quarter over make complete sense to me. These two teams will script it up. That script will happen. Points will be on the board. And then after that, Harsin won't adjust and Alabama will run away with it. But there will be points, and there will be points early.
One other thing to also keep in mind is Auburn will be without its excellent kicker. He's out for the year, Carlson.
Yep.
And this sophomore, Ben Patton, I think he missed like a 26-yarder last week. So you're playing Alabama. You don't have your kicker. You're probably going to see some very aggressive play calling on fourth down.
And great field position.
Yep.
Starting field position.
Yep. I agree. All right. Maybe I'll look into that. You seem very confident there. So I love the enthusiasm. Let's move on to the Pac-12 and head out west for the Civil War between Oregon State and Oregon. Oregon is a 7-point favorite, over under 61. 125th Civil War. Oregon leads 66-48 with 10 ties. This is first played in 1894. The winner gets the Platypus Trophy because the platypus has beaver qualities and duck qualities. I think it's the bill and then the tail. It was gone. It was stolen. Someone stole the Platypus Trophy, and it was gone, missing for 40 years. I was reading about this trophy today. And then it ended up in a high school as the swim trophy for like when they want to meet. And then someone was like, wait, I think this is the Platypus Trophy for Oregon State. And they got it back. Anyway, that's your random fact of the day. So they're playing for a chance to go to the Pac-12 title. Oregon wins, they're in. They get to play Utah again. Hopefully it goes a little better this time. If Oregon State wins, they're maybe in. Oregon State needs to win and then have Washington win. Because if Oregon State wins and Washington State beats Washington, then Washington State wins a 3-way tiebreaker, and then it's Washington State in the Pac-12 title. What a joke. So the question is, well, when you first look at this game, I think the basic handicap starts when you handicap an Oregon State game, you just say, can the other team stop the run? Right. That's where you have to start with it. Oregon's had trouble in that department. On the other side of the ball, Oregon State's defense, it's a tough unit to figure out. Sometimes they look great, and other times they look iffy. Are they going to be able to slow Oregon down? Does Oregon, I don't think there's a motivation question here. Trying to beat your rival who beat you last year, trying to go to the Pac-12 title. But are they a little flat for after last week? They had college football playoffs. I don't think so. I don't think there's any motivation questions here. So this comes down to the matchup on the field. What do you see here?
Yeah, I think you're right. You have to handicap who can stop the run here. A must win for the Ducks, a must win for Oregon State to have any shot whatsoever. This is a game I power rated 7. This is a game that I have the total set right on where it is in the market. So there's not this. Yeah, there's just not this instant take where it's like, oh, well, this is inflated or overvalued. And so you go and you dive into the deep numbers. And before you go and look at the numbers, you realize that Cristobal doesn't cover at home. I mean, I think I've talked about this before. Like when he has big spreads in Autzen, he doesn't cover. So to back that up, they've covered once this year at home. And since he became the head coach of Oregon, he is 7-15 against the spread at home. So Autzen has not been like a friendly place for Oregon to be covering spreads whatsoever, especially as a favorite. Oregon State has won the last two. They've covered the last two. They've put up 200 yards on the ground. So that offense, they put up 200 yards on the ground 4 of the last 5 games. So the offense is clicking on all cylinders from a rushing attack. We know that Oregon can't stop the run. It was a big handicap against Utah. So the Beavers are going to be able to run. They're 3rd in offensive stuff rate. The Ducks are 74th. But that stat works both ways. I mean, the Ducks are 1st in stuff rate, and the Beavers are 107th in stopping the rush, especially at the point of attack at the line of scrimmage. So neither of these defenses are getting into the backfield. Neither of these defenses are stopping the rush. And when you dominate on the ground, it could turn into long extended drives, especially for two teams that are 96th and 61st in pace. So, extreme advantages in offensive finishing drives, extreme advantages in offensive standard down success rate. Chains will be moving. Now, the question is, will points be scored? And that's where you got to go in deeper into the finishing drives and find out, are we getting field goals or are we getting touchdowns? The totals tricked down a little bit from the opener of 62. So it's hard to see either of these defenses, getting a stop or making the other offenses play in passing downs. Getting Anthony Brown into passing downs is key. Getting Oregon State into passing downs is key, but I don't think either defense is going to be able to do that. Both Oregon and Oregon State are top 25 in red zone TD scoring. The Oregon defense is outside the top 100 in opponent TD scoring percentage. What does that mean? Both offenses, when they get into scoring position, will put touchdowns up, not field goals, because Oregon has a long history and it's a rivalry game and they don't cover at home. And I think Oregon State's covered this in Autzen like every time except once in the last 14 years. I side with Oregon State, and I really love the over. So I haven't played it yet. Key 62. I like the over because of the TD percentage in the red zones.
All right, there you have it. And make sure, obviously, we're going to have write-ups for all of these games on actionnetwork.com and the Action Network app. Now we have about, 25 more games to get to. Before we do, so we got to dive in. We're going to go conference by conference, just give you a quick summary and then go into a game or two. Before we do, let's do a little trash man. Little trash man segment. So I'm about to take out the trash, and it's ugly. It is ugly. Oh, man. I'm going to get shit for putting these plays in the app. I haven't done it yet. I'm going to do it. I haven't actually bet these yet. I'm going to see if you talk me off them, and if you don't, they'll be going in the app right after we're done here, and I'll be putting my bets in. All right, by the way, just so this is a week where it's like, okay, you have teams that have 5 wins, so they're playing for bowl eligibility. For what it's worth, those teams are about 53%, 54% against the spread when playing teams that don't have 5 wins. We have a piece out there on actionnetwork.com. But one of the things that you have to try to figure out this week, I call it corpse week. Welcome to the morgue, right? Like which teams are dead, right? So I look at a team like USC. I think they're dead. I look at a team like Stanford. I think they're dead. Like USC, they have 5 wins. Do they really care about going to a bowl? I mean, no. These are kids that went there for much bigger goals. Stanford, to me, I mean, they're not playing for a bowl. Last week they played their rival Cal, and they lost by 40. They had McKee back too, and they gave up 600 yards, maybe 700. They give 10 yards per rush and 10 yards per pass to Cal. Dead team. I don't want any part of them against Notre Dame, no matter what I see value-wise. But a lot of times these kids will play, even though they look like a dead team. They will show up for the last game of the year. It's the last game, blah, blah, blah. But you have to look at these, I think, on an individual basis. Here's 2. Man, I can't believe I'm about to say these. Luckily, it's not Maryland. So, all right. Well,
I can't wait to hear this.
Let's get out of the way. All right. The first is Duke plus 21.5.
Oh, my God.
So Duke can't defend anything. They can't stop a nosebleed. I mean, I think they're giving up 18 yards per completion. They can't tackle. I think it looked like their defense has quit. But Holmberg is back at quarterback. They can move the ball. They've just been getting unlucky. This number is also outrageous. And I'm pretty sure that David Cutcliffe is retiring. and he's going to announce it before this game. That's the rumor. And if that's the case, I'm sure that Duke is going to want to come out here and play for, their legendary coach who's going out on a pretty sad note. Over 21, there's value in Duke. I've swore them off. I haven't bet them, luckily. They haven't been covering. But this is a team that should have covered against Pitt. They put up 30 against Pitt. The only reason they didn't cover is because Holmberg got hurt, and their backups are terrible. They only had like 100 yards in the second half, and then Pitt ended up covering. Miami's going to score. Van Dyke's been on fire. But the Miami defense is terrible. Miami will make mistakes. I think I'm going to be on Duke at over 21. And the second, corpse, which is even uglier. We just mentioned Miami. This team's last FBS win came in 2019 against Miami. Florida International. Florida International has been getting drilled every week. They've had a couple guys sit out last week, including their best running back, Price, who's going to the Senior Bowl. I don't think he's going to be playing this week. They haven't even been close in games. And Bortenschlager, I think, is still their quarterback there. They're catching 10.5 at Southern Miss. Southern Miss is running the Wildcat right now. And I think that these players love Butch Davis. And, one of their best players, Dames, their safety, who's going to go to the Senior Bowl, might play at the next level. He came out and he's like, I love him for staying with us, even though he's wearing a Navy shirt on the sideline. This number is just too high. Southern Miss wants to slow the game to a crawl. I think Florida International is actually going to show up. So, yeah, I'm betting Florida International and Duke. Wish me luck. And by the way, I meant to say, if you think that teams are, they're dead, this team's dead. Since 1980, teams that have lost 3 straight 20-plus point games heading into the last week are 39-33 against the spread. It's 55%. Teams that under a 25% win percentage against teams with a 75% or greater win percentage, 40-33 against the spread. 40-33 against the spread, about 55-56%. So, a lot of times these corpses, you get a ton of value in these games. Like they're just because everyone's like, I don't want to bet these teams. They're trying to read the tea leaves here. Duke and FIU. Any thoughts or any other trash you want to take out?
I think my problem with the Duke theory is that Manny Diaz needs that win just as bad. And Van Dyke has been money. And, even when Holmberg was playing, they weren't getting any points up on the board. So I agree that the players do love Cutcliffe and that this is, we'd have to check with our sources here to see if he is retiring here. But I think the one fly in that ointment is the fact that, Manny Diaz is potentially on the outs with an interim AD. So that's one thing that I would pay attention to. But I'm not with you on Florida International because I like Southern Miss that much. Now I understand there's a collection of like 3 running backs around Frank Gore that are running the Wildcat, and they're essentially, if you are a wide receiver or a running back on the Southern Miss roster, you're taking a snap. The offense, Hall ball has been completely morphed into, I just need a warm body that can take a snap and shotgun, because that's all that they're doing. And when I look at that, I look at Florida International's ranks on defense. They're bottom 5 in everything. Now they are 18th in tackling. Okay. And that's what you have to do against a group of wide receivers and running backs that are essentially running Wildcat and reverse, jet sweeps and all this other shit that Southern Miss is doing. But Southern Miss is playing extremely hard. If Florida International was playing anybody else that wasn't making a bowl, that would be fine. But Southern Miss is playing extremely hard and took UTSA to the brink. Now that I'm actually on your side and believe that UTSA may be a little fraudish, but that doesn't dismiss the fact that Southern Miss is trying really hard. I think that brings me to my last thing about trash teams. I'm not fading first-year coaches. I'm not fading teams that have first-year coaches that are still trying their hardest.
La Monroe, baby. I'm betting La Monroe against Louisiana.
Yeah, not just La Monroe, but it's like you see Arizona cover 4 straight before they finally got their eventual first win. It's programs like that, programs that are in first years of coaches and they're still trying to get some sort of minimal achievement to take it into next year. That's what I would not want to fade. Lame duck situations where there's no bowl and a coach may be out the door. Yeah, you can fire away on that all day.
All right, let's get into the rundown. We'll go through every conference and then hit a game or two. All right, let's start in the ACC. There's 4 games. There's 3 games that matter this week. Wake Forest going to Boston College. Wake Forest is a 4.5-point favorite at Boston College. If they win the Atlantic and they go play Pitt. If they lose and NC State beats North Carolina, then Wake, North Carolina State, and Clemson would be tied at 6-2 in the conference. I said 3 games matter, only 2. Clemson's playing an out-of-conference game. NC State would then win that tiebreaker. Clemson, however, can get in if NC State loses and Wake Forest loses at BC. And if you want to go ahead and parlay them, that's probably what's going to end up happening because the world is evil and Clemson's going to end up getting it. I personally like, there's 2 other games worth mentioning. I don't know if you like South Carolina or not. It's crazy that Clemson in that offense can lay 11.5 to me, but I'm not sure if I want to buy South Carolina, who's been playing a little better of late. Pitt, Syracuse. Pitt is playing for nothing. They're already in the ACC championship. They're playing 13.5 here. Syracuse, I think they're at 5 wins. They should be motivated here. But you can't run on Pitt, and that's all Syracuse can do. And you have to hit explosive passing plays on the outside against Pitt's aggressive corners. Syracuse can't do that. So I don't see how they really move the ball. And then Pitt's playing for nothing. I know there's going to be pace in this game, but I kind of like the under. And by the way, some of these times where these teams are playing for nothing, like Pitt, like they could sit Pickett, right? Like they could easily sit him here. They're playing for absolutely nothing. You saw that today with NIU. They sat Rocky Lombardi. So I don't know. I kind of like the under there. As far as UNC, NC State, I make that way lower than it has been. NC State, I just think their defense is a bit overrated because of the schedule of offenses, and they played a number of backup quarterbacks. Like they played FSU with Milton. They played BC with Grossel. I mean, the list goes on, and they've lost a number of different starters. I think UNC, this is UNC's Super Bowl now, and NC State's season. And, I mean, they had a really disappointing season. So I think you'll get up. The Sam Howell injury status, I think he's 100% healthy. But that's something to keep an eye on. But I think there's value with the Tar Heels. And then my favorite bet of all of them is BC catching 4.5 or 5 against Wake. I make this closer to 1. I think it's a really good matchup for BC. We've seen that Wake Forest defense stinks. We saw Army almost put up 60 through the air, throwing the ball against them. Everyone is going to score against Wake Forest. We talk about this, run, pass, whatever you want to do. They made Clemson's offense look competent. That's hard to do. UConn even slowed down Clemson's offense. So BC, hey, you want to run the ball? They've been running it a lot lately. Sure, go ahead. Run it right down Wake's throat. You're going to score. You want to throw it with Jerkovich? Sure, fine. Hit explosive plays. Now, the Wake Forest offense with Sam Hartman is also going to score a lot. Hard to stop them. They're going to get their points. But BC's defense, I like their pass defense is better than the run defense. That's important here. And the Wake run defense is really poor. And BC likes to run it a lot. It sets up everything else. BC plays slow. They're going to kind of slow this game down. This is a field goal game written all over. That's pretty much all Wake seems to play all year. I think BC actually gets this win over Wake and upsets them, and the world sucks. And Clemson's going to end up somehow. UNC beats, and I'm going to have to watch Dabo smirk, but at least I'll be on UNC and BC when it happens. Any thoughts on any of these ACC games?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be pulling for Wake this weekend, but I mean, individually handicapping each one of these games, the Sam Howell situation, I've been closely monitoring. I took an under on open. Sam Howell was in a sling against Wofford. That was a play that I was able to get in. They didn't even come close to covering that game. Phil Longo came to his press conference on Tuesday and said that Howell was active in practice on Tuesday. But considering, that Howell's graduating in just a few weeks and how high he's going to go in the NFL, it's really good. This is Longo's words. It's really good that we got Jacoby Criswell and Drake May in at quarterback. So I got to see some reps out of them, and I look forward to seeing more tape on those two quarterbacks. I think there's coaches speak going on that says Howell is practicing this week. I don't think he's going to play. That's just opinion. That's not something that's been stated, but He is at practice. They said he was held out for precautionary reasons, but if Sam Howell's got an agent or if he's got people whispering in his ear, there's no way he's playing this game. And UNC has made it very clear that they're interested in seeing how good Criswell and May are. And this is a good game against a great NC State defense to try that out. It's a 3-3-5 defense with defensive coordinator Tony Gibson.
NC State's going to get to face another backup quarterback? Good
I think
Lord.
so. We'll see. I mean, Tony Gibson's – the Wolfpack, they posted 14 tackles for loss and 5 sacks against Syracuse. And I think what else is important, if Sam Howell does play this game, it's not going to help his NFL draft stock. NC State is 8th in the nation in PBUs. I mean, it's not an easy game. This is not a cupcake for Sam Howell to go out there and fill up a highlight reel. So I think we do get the sophomore and the freshman quarterback in there, and we'll see what happens. But whether Sam Howell plays or not, I think it's 2 ground attacks, both for NC State and for UNC. Believe it or not, they're both pretty good in the red zone defensively at generating field goals and not touchdowns. So I like the under on that game. Clemson -11 is the play. Projected right now for the Cheez-It Bowl. If you don't know anything about the ACC and how they place their bowl teams, there's like a tier 1 that you automatically get placed into. And then there's this litany of shit bowls, right? And you don't want to be in the shit bowls. And for Clemson to avoid the shit bowls, they're going to have to win this game, and they're going to have to win it with style. They're going to take massive advantage of South Carolina, a team that should be on hangover because they just made bowl season. They were faced as a 7.5-point underdog against Auburn, had to win that or against Clemson to make bowl season. They made it. They're partying hard. Beamer's in a bowl. They're not going to show up for this game. So Clemson.
Not showing up for Clemson? Come on.
I don't like it. I don't want it. But what's South Carolina do? They're going to line up and compete in this game after that. What was their win total? What was their win total? Like,
you're just bitter. You're bitter about their win total. It's come get them, Columbia. All right, moving on to the AAC. It's Cincy will head to East Carolina. Says he's playing for home field advantage in the title and also an outside shot at the college football playoff. Houston, meanwhile, has already clinched a spot. They will host it if Cincy loses. They travel to UConn. Talk about the oddest spot of the year. They go to UConn, and they're playing for nothing. I don't know how the hell you cap that game. I don't know if Holgerson going to sit out everyone. I don't know. But Cincinnati going to East Carolina, 14.5-point favorites. What do you see here?
Well,
Holt Nailers in November. It's still November.
Holt Nailers, Novembers. I love them. I project Cincinnati at 14.5, but they need as many style points as possible. Placed 4th in the college football playoff rankings, and there's about to be massive games in the landscape from Bedlam to Ohio State and Michigan. Cincinnati's going to have to do something to keep that focus on them. I love my Twitter mentions today about strength of record, strength of schedule, and we got to get Cincinnati in. And our own sources, Brett McMurphy, comes in with just a pile driver on how Oklahoma State's dominated their competition. But listen, this is a bad combination for East Carolina. They struggle in rushing the ball and protecting the quarterback. They ranked bottom 20 in FBS in both of those categories, and that's not good against Cincinnati. They're defensively 4th in pass rush. They're 2nd in pass coverage. This is another game, once again, where there's major discrepancies in finishing drives, all in favor of Cincinnati. This is a complete Bearcats play. This is a complete team total over. East Carolina does not have any matchup discrepancies that they can take advantage of. As far as Houston, UConn, I was shocked you even put it in the script. I was like, well, what can I say about this? Well, the total is steaming down. Why is the total steaming down? Because Houston doesn't need to play this game. They essentially do they even need to win? They don't even need to win this game. I can't understand how they have a great defense. I mean, they have a fabulous defense. Houston's number 1 in pass rush. They're 12th in defensive havoc. So what do they need to do? Score a touchdown and then sit everybody? I can't even believe they're making the flight. That's more of a risk.
What a bizarre game.
Yeah, this will be the most conservative game. I would be shocked if Houston came out guns blazing. I'd be shocked. So under. I would grab it because I just think it's going to keep going down.
Yeah, look at what NIU did today. They're already at a place in the conference championship. They ran 37 plays. That's it today. 37.
And that's what Thomas Hammock telling everybody that I read all weekend. Thank you for letting me spend my damn weekend, Thomas Hammock, Northern Illinois, for me reading that you made all the players come in and practice on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday because your goal for this season was to beat every team that beat you last year, and that included Western Michigan, and you no-showed tonight. I'm tired of listening to these coaches. They're liars.
Yeah, I mean, they basically just came in and ran halfback dive for
the
entire game. That's it. But keep that in mind. Some teams will do that are already clinched, and we'll go through them all here. All right. You also have what? Memphis was 5 wins. They'll play Tulane. Memphis needs to win to get to 6. Tulsa plays SMU. Tulsa needs to win to get the bowl eligibility. The rest of the games are junk. I don't know if I can trust Temple against Navy, even if it gets to 2 touchdowns. Temple looks like a corpse to me.
So Tulane, they did have one goal. That was to win their first FBS game.
To miss an extra point and cost them money.
Their goal was to win an FBS game because their only win of the season was against an FCS school. So they achieved that. I expect them to be completely checked out. Memphis, on the other hand, this Tulane defense cannot defend the pass whatsoever. Hennigan for Memphis, he's back on again, throwing the ball just fine, the freshman. I expect Memphis to roll here.
Memphis is a weird team for me to figure out. All right, let's move on to the Big Ten. We already talked about Ohio State and Michigan. Simple for that division. Winner goes to the Big Ten championship. The other division in the Big Ten in the West is not as simple. What is simple is if Wisconsin beats Minnesota, the Paul Bunyan's Axe, by the way, it's the most played series of any FBS series. I think they played, I want to say 130 times. This is like the 131st meeting for the Paul Bunyan Axe. So if Wisconsin beats Minnesota, they're 7-point road favorites. Talk about a team that's trending up. Then they go to the Big Ten championship, play the winner of Michigan, Ohio State. If Minnesota beats Wisconsin, then and Nebraska beats Iowa, then and Purdue beats Indiana, they're 2 touchdown favorites. Purdue can't win the division, but if Purdue gets in there for the four-way tie, Minnesota wins the 4-way tie. But if Minnesota beats Wisconsin and Iowa beats Nebraska, then Iowa is going. There's also a scenario where, like, if Indiana wins, Wisconsin can still go if they lose, but that's not happening. So it really comes down to, Iowa needs to win and hope that Minnesota wins. And Wisconsin just needs to win to get in. One of my favorite bets of the preseason was them to win the division. I'm just letting it go here. Wisconsin has been unbelievable with this kid, Braylon Allen. When he and Malusi had a timeshare where they were in the same games against the same defenses, when they were sharing carries, shout out Chris. Malusi, 98 carries, 483 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. Allen, 81 carries, 612 yards, 7.5 yards per carry. Allen is averaging 3.2 yards per carry more than expected based on the opponent rushing D. Malusi was negative expectation. He's been dominant. He's the best. He might be the best running back in college football. He's 17. The offense is, just breaks tackles. The offense, you got to watch this kid. And I became a 100% a believer after watching him against Nebraska. And then that opens up the passing game for Mertz, and he can make some basic throws and actually looks a little competent. Wisconsin D, also elite against the run. And this Minnesota offense has had some stinkers, against Purdue, against Bowling Green. I still don't know how Tanner Morgan threw for 50 yards and 2 picks on like 9 attempts against Bowling Green. But they need to run to set up the pass. And you're not going to run on Wisconsin. They don't need to sell out to stop the run. So I think this spells trouble for Minnesota. Iowa, Nebraska, it's tough for me to figure out what we're going to get from this quarterback with Adrian Martinez is out. Feels like this is just going to be a low stinker. The thing to note here, this is one of the biggest special teams mismatches of the college football season. Iowa absolutely elite, and Nebraska's dead last and everything. Like 4 or 5 points of spread difference in this game. Penn State at Sparty. I'm going Penn State. Back to fading Sparty. I'll see you on Twitter. Penn State doesn't run the ball. Oh, great. Cool. All they do is throw. Great. Play a poverty secondary. I'll be on Penn State. James Franco just had a 10-year contract. I think that'll carry over to the team here. And Sparty might be a little deflated after last week. And Maryland at Rutgers for bowl eligibility. No, thanks. You can cover that if you want. That's about it for me in the Big Ten. What do you got in the Big Ten?
Well, yeah. So one of the biggest win total plays from a unit perspective was Maryland over 5.5. I had a feeling this number was going to steam, and it is. So you can expect a Rutgers play to come in this week to cover up a little bit of all that we put on the Maryland win total. So that's really the handicap there. As far as Iowa, Nebraska,
Rutgers can't defend the pass, so they can defend the run. That's good,
right.
But Maryland will fuck it up.
But Maryland will have 6. Maryland will have 6 turnovers, and then I'll lose. The $1,500 I stored away months ago. So, Adrian Martinez is worth 4 points. That's one thing I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like the market is moving this much for a." You and I have never been able to put a number on Adrian Martinez because he giveth and he taketh. And apparently the market reacted by moving the spread 4 points. So that to me is a no play. That leaves me with Wisconsin and Minnesota, a game that I actually project for a total of 36, sitting around in the market right now at 39. And Stuck's right about Braylon Allen. I think we showed up on a BBOC live show a couple Saturdays ago, and I just said, Wisconsin, Braylon Allen, shut the lights off. Let's all go. I mean, the kid is that unbelievable. And I think the problem is when I want to take the under on this, because I make it 36 and the market is at 39, Wisconsin has dominated this series. They've won 9 of the last 10, but specifically when they go to Minnesota, they have scored at least 31 points the last 3 times they've gone. I think Paul Chris likes to beat the shit out of PJ Fleck. There's just something about those two guys that have different styles. And this is a pretty big game for Wisconsin. I think it'll be all ground-based. That defense will show up no matter if there's overlook to the Big Ten championship or not. The pace is there, 124th and 129th. That plays a big part of it. But no, Wisconsin's on fire right now. Minnesota defensively, they're not bad. They're top 25 in rushing success rate. They're 28th in line yards. But this is Braylon Allen. I like Wisconsin to cover. I like Wisconsin's team total over as the best bet in that game.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. By the way, for Baylor fans, Baylor can still get to the Big 12 championship. I didn't mention that. They're going to need to win, and they have a win over Oklahoma. So they need Oklahoma State to beat Oklahoma, and then it will be Baylor versus Oklahoma State. They're laying 14 against Texas Tech. I got nothing there. You got anything there?
Nothing there. I think Baylor is going to win this game, and I expected more out of Donovan Smith and Texas Tech, but that might be it for them in their season as they transition into a new head coach.
All right, let's move on to the Conference USA, where we will have UTSA will host the conference championship game. They already know that in the Alamo Dome. They will either host Western Kentucky or Marshall. Western Kentucky travels to Marshall. Marshall's a 1.5 point favorite there. There are a couple other games of note here. UTSA. So UTSA, they already clinched. They know they're going to be in the conference championship. They know they're hosting, but they are undefeated. They go to a North Texas team that's playing really well. Won 4 in a row. They're at 5 wins. Wasn't against the greatest competition, but they're trending in the right direction. Does UTSA try go all out for the undefeated season? Do they sit guys worrying about the conference championship? Something to note there. I kind of like North Texas the way they've been playing. I'm a little scared about what's happened when they stepped up in class, but that's something to keep your eye on. I've already mentioned FIU. UAB, flat spot at home against UTEP. They lost in the last second. They're laying 13.5. They lost in the last second to UTSA to go to the conference championship. I'd be careful with UAB. I'm not sure if I want to bet UTEP. What's up, Minor Nation? And there are a couple matchups of 5-win teams. MTSU plays FAU. Charlotte plays ODU. Winners get bowl eligibility. But I think the biggest thing here is Western Kentucky, Marshall. We have Western Kentucky futures. Who wins this game? Are you hedging? What's the handicap here?
Not hedging. Going in on Western Kentucky, taking, I don't care if you have 14-1, 10-1, 7-1, not hedging here. And frankly, from what I've seen out of UTSA secondary. I'm not sure if I'm hedging there either. But when you look at Marshall's rank, they're 49th in coverage ranking. When you look at their on defense, whether it's standard downs or passing downs, they're having problems with the explosive play, specifically 54th in passing downs explosiveness on defense. And standard downs, they're 76th in standard down success rate. Western Kentucky is the third best team in the nation in standard down success rate on offense. They push and move the ball lightning quick. And speaking of lightning quick, these two teams are ranked 6th and 9th in tempo. This is going to be up and down the field. The team that is better in havoc allowed and makes the least amount of mistakes is Western Kentucky. They're third in the country in havoc allowed. They're number 1 in passing success rate. And Marshall just does not have it in the secondary to keep up with this team. This is going to be an absolute drag race. And at the end of the day, Western Kentucky's got more firepower. And there's just nothing. Marshall's going to be able to get something done on the ground, but that's not going to work when you're down 14 or down 10 or down 21. So I expect max effort out of Marshall, but at the same time, they do not have the secondary to hang with Western Kentucky. And who really doesn't have the secondary to hang is UTSA. So to pivot over into that game, UTSA has nothing to play for. North Texas right now is
undefeated season, but yeah, nothing other than that.
North Texas right now is a covering machine, and Seth Luttrell is coaching for his job. 5 wins, got to have it to go to a bowl. They've covered every game that they've been in, and they've been on fire. Now, I'm not talking just Florida International and being up 35-0 in the second quarter. I mean, every week they're covering. So, little spoiler alert for 3 and out later, but it's going to be mean green. I wouldn't be surprised if they win this outright. But no hedge in Western Kentucky. And I feel pretty comfortable that Marshall's not going to spoil our chances.
Wow, mean green. I think you're hitting at Moneyline Underdog. I was actually considering them. I didn't end up picking them, but we'll see. All right, let's move on. Yeah, Zappy Hour, baby. When is that game? We'll all be rooting. I'm going to let it go too. People have been asking about hedges. So like Kent State 14-1. Listen, it comes down to your own personal risk tolerance and then your own financial position, right? Will this be life-changing money? Do you really need it? Will you be hurt if you lose it? If you do, just take a bet and then bet it on the other team just to get back your initial investment. If that's going to give you peace of mind, if you want to try to get half of it, I can't answer that when you ask me, should I hedge? Everyone always messaged me that. It comes down to your own risk tolerance, your own financial situation. Sometimes it's just basic avoiding mental biases, and then that'll impact your betting. And if you need to hedge a little piece of it just to keep yourself sane, fine, do it. Everyone is different for many different reasons. So it's really hard to give a blanket answer. I'm letting Kent State go. I'm letting Western Kentucky go. Zappy Hour and Flash Fast. Both of those teams are going to be going a million miles an hour for us.
I will say this, that 3 years ago when we were doing our podcast, the newly rebranded Action Network podcast from the Gin and Juice, I had $1,000 at Westgate on 20-1 for UAB. They got into a pick'em game against Middle Tennessee in the conference championship. And I debated all week. I mean, even through the podcast, I hadn't made a decision. It was either going to be I was going to get my initial $1,000 back because the game was a pick, or I was going to go up to $5,000 for the chance of a $20,000 payout. I ended up going to $2,500. So listen to Stuck. It doesn't matter if you have $10, doesn't matter if you have $10,000 on this Western Kentucky future that we've been pimping since baseball season started. Just make sure that you cover yourself. Whatever you put in, if you're feeling a little nervous about it, just buy back what you put in. The number was big enough, you can get that back. And then you live to play another day. The whole thing about sustaining. Yeah,
both Kent State and they're both picks, basically. So
yeah, and I think we should just take a moment, because a lot of other podcasts out there, there's just other content places where it's just irresponsible. It's just pick this, pick that, pick this, pick that. If you want to be in the game long term, find a way to keep money flowing through your wallet. So this is a good chance to do that. This is not life-changing money for me. This is a personal decision. So my advisement is keep money in your wallet. If you need to, buy back your initial position. For me, I'm letting it roll.
Yeah, and then you always can also make a decision if you see something you like mid-game or second half. Say Western Kentucky is up 14 and you want to go for a little middle for your initial investment, maybe try to hit both.
Yeah.
There's other things you can try to do as well. But that's going to be, man, this weekend's going to be so sick. All right, so that's at 3:30.
Yep.
Zappy hour. Man, I'm going to have drinks are going to be flowing.
Yeah.
At noon, before then, we have Kent State, who's going to be going a million miles per hour.
You got better than me, right? I got a 10-1. What'd you get? 14?
Yeah, I got 14-1. 14-1.
Yeah.
And I'm letting this go. I wrote this game up on actionnetwork.com and Action Network app. I bet Miami of Ohio's playing really well. And they have Gabbert back, who's been much better than the backup. Meyer. Sorensen, great receiver. Hippenhammer, the transfer from Penn State's been playing really well. They can sling it around the yard, and they're going to put up points here. Kent State, they have Dustin Crum. They have a three-header monster in the backfield. They have explosive receivers on the outside. Miami Ohio front seven is pretty damn good, but their secondary is lacking. They lost for Gumba. They have a corner that they're starting outside on per PFF. He's 434th out of 434 corners, minimum 100 snaps and coverage. Kent State's going to score. They score on everyone, and they score within like 2 minutes. I think the line is about right. It is worth noting that this is at home, and both these teams, I think, are 9-0 combined at home, and they're like 1-2-9 on the road. And so that might make the difference here. But here's where the market, I played the over 64.5 for what it's worth. Here's where the market's not accounted for. It's Kent State special teams. They can't punt it. And so luckily they don't punt that often. But more importantly, they can't kick it off. This team, their kicker can't reach the 20. So they're dead last in touchbacks, and teams are starting around the 35 or 40 against them every time, sometimes the 50. So here's what happens. Kent State scores within 2 minutes. They lead the nation in drives under 2 minutes. They kick it off. The team starts around midfield. They score on Kent State's shitty D. Kent State gets the ball. They score in 2 minutes. I mean, these are why these totals get bet up, and they still go over. Sans that weird Akron game where they actually decided to play slow. I think just maybe given the circumstances that the game didn't mean much. So I like the over. Still think that Kent State overs are too low. I think both offenses are going to be firing on all cylinders. And is Kent State going to win? I don't know. Could I see Miami winning? Absolutely. I think this is like whoever has the ball last wins. Should be a thrilling game, and I think it's going to be a shootout. Any thoughts?
I'm rolling with you. I'm not hedging either. I can't stay flash fast all the way.
Sean Lewis, baby. All right, let's move on to the Mountain West. All right, the Mountain West. You have San Diego State is 6-1. They play Boise State on Friday at 9 a.m. local time in Carson, California, 2 hours from campus on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. There's going to be like 10 people there. That's on noon Eastern on Friday. And they're 6-1. If San Diego State wins and beats Boise, they're in. They win the West. If they lose and Fresno State on Thursday beats San Jose State, they're 7.5-point favorites. Fresno State is in because Fresno State is the head-to-head tiebreaker over San Diego State. Interesting nugget here. If San Jose State wins on Thursday, San Diego State's playing for nothing on Friday. So maybe they sit people. Maybe they're really flat at 9 a.m. for a game. So keep your eye on that because that Fresno State game is on Thursday. And if they lose, San Diego State clinches and hosts, assuming that Air Force loses. Now, the Mountain is a little more complicated. Boise is 5-2. Utah State's 5-2. Air Force is 5-2. If Boise wins, beats San Diego State, they get to 6-2. You would assume Utah State beats New Mexico. You would assume that Air Force beats UNLV, 17, 18-point favorites. If that's the case, then Utah State wins the tiebreaker. The only way Boise can go is if Boise wins. I mean, both of them can lose if Utah State and Air Force loses, but they need Air Force to lose. And if that's the case, then they are going because if them and Utah State win, they have the head-to-head over Utah State. If Utah State loses and Air Force wins and Boise wins, Air Force is the head-to-head over Boise State. And the three-way tiebreaker, Utah State goes. What it most likely looks like it's going to happen is that Utah State and Air Force are going to be tied at the top. They're both going to win this weekend. And whether or not Boise wins or not, Utah State's going to go because if they're in a two-way tie. So Boise still has a shot. I don't know if all that made sense, but Boise State, San Diego State should be a hell of a game. I love Boise. I love the under. I wrote this game up as well, so you can. I'll tweet it out, and it'll be on actionnetwork.com and Action Network app. Here's my quick handicap. The Boise defense is rolling. It makes sense that this defense is rolling now. Andy Avalos, brilliant defensive mind. They brought in a new staff, new scheme. They had a lot of injuries early on. They had a lot of targeting penalties. Jalen Skinner, who missed like three halves. He's a future NFL safety. Their Riley Wimpy, their star linebacker, he missed the first half against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State put up 21 in the first half, didn't score in the second half, got blanked. They're nickelback, but they've made a lot of changes. Number one, they got used to the scheme. Number two, they made a lot of personnel changes at corner. They're playing Biggers, this kid from Bowling Green. They're playing this younger kid on the outside who are playing really well. Defensive line got healthy. The run defense is playing well. This is a team that just held New Mexico to, I think, 76 yards and shut them out. They shut down Fresno. This defense is rolling. Also, Boise special teams, elite. Just like San Diego State. Not as good. You don't have the punt god, but neutralizes San Diego State's advantage a bit here. And on the other side of the ball, look, San Diego State's defense is great, but they lost 3 pros in the secondary. And whenever they've been tested, they've shown a little vulnerability. Boise State can't really run the ball, but Tim Plow's figured out a couple things, how to get the receivers involved in the running game. But all this comes down to me, special teams, kind of a wash. Little advantage to San Diego State. But the difference between, I have Boise now the top 25 defense nationally. The difference between the San Diego State defense, which is like top 10, and the Boise offense, which is like average, and the Boise State defense, which is top 25, and the poverty San Diego State offense is huge. I don't see how San Diego State moves the ball here. This Boise State defense is rolling, and they're going to stuff the box. The run defense is improved. Boise State will hit enough explosive plays through the air, probably to Shakir, with Backmeyer to get this done in a low-scoring game. A lot of field position. They might be. I don't know how they're going to react to a 9 a.m. start, but a lot of field position, a lot of tackling. San Diego State wants to run and play slow. Boise plays a little faster, wants to throw it, but San Diego State's defense will hold its own. We'll get the punt god controlling the field position. I think this goes under, and I think Boise wins.
I like that. I'm going to follow up on that play. I'm going to actually take San Jose State at home at 2:30 in the afternoon on Thanksgiving Day against Fresno State, a team that has 5 wins, wants to get to bowl season, has dealt with injuries all year long. Nick Nash playing quarterback, which is, really kind of generated a lot of these bad numbers that you see on offense. I can't sit here and tell you that they're really 110th in rushing success rate or 110th in finishing drives because they haven't had Nick Starkel. They haven't had their full set of players, but they are playing extremely good pass coverage. They're 33rd in pass coverage. They're top 25 in defending the explosive play, both things that you have to have against Haener, against Ronnie Rivers, against everything that Fresno State brings to the table. But it's just, to leave Fresno on Thanksgiving Day and go up to San Jose, that is not an easy drive. And I expect that to increase the home field advantage. And it's a game that I make at 6. So it's 7.5. It has a lot of value. I'd play it through to 6. And I think that they can win outright.
Yep. I agree with Sandy. I agree with San Jose State. All right. SEC, Missouri, Arkansas. Here's my quick take on this. Missouri's offense is a mess. They've had a lot of offensive injuries. They lost, they're down to the 3rd string right tackle. They lost their guard, their MVP of the offensive line. They've been shifting a lot of people around. Their left tackle and center are good. Everyone else has been shifting around. They don't have good receivers. And everything goes as Tyler Beatty goes. If you can run, they can move the ball a little bit. However, what was really holding back Missouri early in the year is their defense. But their defense is playing really well. And it played really well for 3 straight weeks, and the run defense has improved. I think that, look, they fired the defensive line coach. They brought in Steve Wilkes, new defensive coordinator, pro guy, plays a lot of complex zones, cover zeros. Took them a while to get used to it. Their defense is playing better. Now, they were missing their star corner last week who got invited to the Senior Bowl. I don't expect him to play this week. True freshman stepped in and was outstanding against Florida. But I don't see Beatty being able to run much on Arkansas, so I think Missouri's going to struggle to move the ball. And this improved Missouri defense, I don't think is being captured in the market. So I think the total is just a tad too high. I like the under, but defer to you. And what do you see with your Hogs?
Missouri's going to have a hangover here. I mean, they became bowl eligible and they got Dan Mullen fired, and Drinkwitz just with the ultimate press conference trolling of all time. I mean, this Missouri team, they've had their share of struggles on offense. Connor Bazelak has not been the same since coming back from injury. And they have a defense that's 121st in the red zone. It's going to be a really bad combination against an Arkansas offensive line and a multiplayer running back unit that can just dominate most trenches in college football. But I give Arkansas credit for showing up against Alabama. I thought they would no-show, and I couldn't have been more wrong with what Pittman does with this team week in and week out. 61% success rate in standard downs against Alabama defense, 6.3 yards against the Tide front seven in standard downs. You cannot beat the Hogs unless you put KJ Jefferson in passing downs, contain the pocket, and throw quadruple coverage on Treylon Burks, who's healthy, by the way. So back to Bazelak. He's posted his 2 worst adjusted completion percentage games of the season, the last 2 weeks, against South Carolina and Florida. Arkansas has been fantastic at getting on the board early in games, and Missouri is outside the top 100 in scoring differential in the first half. They're coming down to Fayetteville. Do a little geography lesson. There is no direct route from Columbia to Fayetteville. It's a big hangover spot. Hogs first quarter -3.5. Hogs first half -7.5. $250,000 bonus for Sam Pittman, and we're going to try to make our way into a higher bowl. We don't want to be in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Put us in Florida and Tampa or Orlando, please.
There you have it. By the way, Kentucky Louisville, big rivalry here. I make it spot on. Do you have anything there?
Nothing.
Okay, we'll have right up on actionnetwork.com and Action Network app if you want more insight there. And by the way, live show, Big Bets on Campus Live, 10:30 a.m. Eastern on both Friday and Saturday for both slates. All right, let's talk some Egg Bowl, by the way. We have to talk some Egg Bowl. I can't wait for this game. It's always one of my favorite college football regular season games of the year. Now we have Leach and Lane Kiffin. I think we're going to disagree on this game. Right now, Mississippi State is sitting at let's double check, a 1.5-point favorite at home, over under 62. Speaking of over-unders and Ole Miss, unders have been free money with Ole Miss lately. When I look at this game, Will Rogers is playing at such a high level. And yes, you could say teams that, dropped, they rush 3 and drop 8, used to have success against Leach. And they did. Jimmy Lake used to do that against Washington State. But teams are doing that this year in the SEC. And Will Rogers is still, look at Kentucky does that. Will Rogers, what did he go? 41 of 44 for 450 yards. He's rolling right now. I think that he can move the ball. Look, Mississippi wants to take away the explosive play. All right, that's fine. That's not what Mississippi State lives and dies by. They want to move it methodically down the field with Will Rogers throwing the ball. I think he can have success doing that here. On the other side of the ball, Mississippi State's defense is outstanding against the run. They also have 2 really good corners who I think can match up here. But you have to remember that Ole Miss wants to set up everything through the run. Mississippi State can hang here. Their defense has proved that all year long. And look, it's a short week. Ole Miss has played a gauntlet. I know they played Vanderbilt last week, but they were in a kind of a battle with Vanderbilt last week. And they just played nothing but SEC teams week after week after week. Their bye was in September. Meanwhile, Mississippi State had their bye later. They just had a laugher this past weekend at home. They get to stay at home. I think they're going to be much fresher. And, all those injuries that Ole Miss has been dealing with that have kind of held the offense back. Short week here. Maybe some of them flare up. I trust Leach here. I trust this Mississippi State defense. I trust Will Rogers. I think Mississippi State gets this done against an Ole Miss offense that's just been a little off for the past month due to injuries. And, it's just not the same elite unit that we've seen earlier in the year. The defense has improved a little bit, but I don't think it's going to slow down Leach, Rogers, and company. Give me the dogs. Give me the cowbell. I'll be ringing it on Thursday night. What do you got?
I actually agree with everything that you have to say. I mean, this Mississippi State offense has been fantastic. Will Rogers, 34 to 18, the INT ratio, 1.8% turnover worthy plays this year. That's minimal. Leach's offense has been fantastic. They even broke Dak Prescott's Mississippi State record for passing yards and TDs in a season with Will Rogers. But the place to attack the Bulldogs on their defense is in standard downs. The Bulldogs have given up chunk plays all season, and they rank outside the top 100 in defending the explosive play in standard downs. On 1st and 10, 2nd and 7, they have been eaten alive by explosive plays. And if you turn around and look at what Ole Miss is playing for, yes, they're playing for Sugar Bowl, but that's going down narrative street. If you want to look at actual street, Jonathan Mingo played last week. He had a catch from Matt Corral. Matt Corral continues to limit the number of zone reads, the number of times that he's left the pocket. But all indications are this is the healthiest that this Ole Miss offense has been in the past 6 weeks. And I think that's going to be a big difference in the first half. And if you look at Mississippi State through SEC conference play, it takes them 3 or 4 drives before they start dominating teams. They dink and dunk on offense with the air raid. They play really good defense, outstanding rush defense. So I think Ole Miss is going to have success. You're right. They're built to have a 2-man front and stop and prevent explosive plays, but that's not Mississippi State's game. The problem is it takes a couple drives where Will Rogers is really accurate and on point and never comes out in the first drive. So I think Ole Miss is going to have success early. I'm taking Ole Miss in the first half. But I think this comes all the way down to the wire. So I'm confident that Ole Miss is healthy for the first time in weeks on offense. I think they're going to show that with Matt Corral, a last-ditch effort for the Heisman. I think he's going to leave the pocket more than he has since that Tennessee game when he took off 30 times. And then there will be adjustments made, and it'll become a complete dogfight, and hopefully no one's peeing in the end zone at the end. But I like Ole Miss in the first half here before the air raid attack catches up and makes this a game all the way to the end.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will be curious to see if Corral does run a lot more. I mean, he does have an NFL future in his head. So, I mean, if Lane wants to run him 30 times to beat Leach, good for him. Yeah. But where the total sits right now, I would lean the under. Another under. I think what is Ole Miss at 4 or 5 unders in a row.
But Mississippi State's
just not there.
Mississippi State's hit 4 overs in a row. When I was researching this game, I said,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, how is Mississippi State 4 overs in a row and Ole Miss is 4 unders in a row, or 5 unders in a row? How would you even guess that, right? It's
yeah. Because Mississippi State wants to bleed the clock. They go slow, even though they just throw all the time, and Ole Miss wants to go fast. I do lean under there. Not huge value, but I personally think the Bulldogs get it done. But it should be a good one. Highly entertaining. Great game for Twitter. All right, we have one conference to close out our Sun Belt. It's App State versus ULL. Next weekend, it's locked in. Game will be at ULL. Does ULL care? They play ULM. And does App State care? They play Georgia Southern. I played ULM plus 22. There's a couple reasons why. I don't know if ULL will care for they're playing for absolutely nothing. We won't say his name. Is talking to like Florida and LSU for coach openings this week. They already know they're hosting the conference championship next weekend. They're playing for nothing. I think ULM shows up here. They only have 4 wins. They're not playing for bowl, but it's a new staff. It's a team that went 0-10 last year. They're still trying. They played LSU at LSU really tough last week. They lost 27-14. And last year, during one of the most embarrassing years you can have, they went 0-10. They never led for a second the whole year. At the very end of the year, they lost 70-20 at home with ULL running it up. So I think that this is kind of like that spot with Coastal Carolina and Georgia State, when Georgia State, I think, lost 65-0 on their home field. Went to Coastal Carolina this year and got payback and won outright. So I think ULM shows up here. I think this line's inflated. There's a chance that ULL sits guys, just basic runs, stay healthy. So I like that. No interest in the App State game. Anything in the belt for you?
Well, I think with App State, I mean, that is a very large spread against the Georgia Southern team that runs an extremely slow ground offense. So I think it's a little inflated there, but I'm not trying to get in the way of App State. And then the coach that we will not speak of, who's entertaining offers from everybody because he likes to look at himself in the mirror and blow bets. Let's just say, let's put a pause. Let's table the Sun Belt and just expect a Mountaineers wager to be coming through. I already have, I think a 4-1 futures play on App State to win the Sun Belt. I remember hitting that. I remember hitting that for a nickel. So I still want to put a bet in through the app on this game. So I'll figure it out. But I know that in the preseason write-ups, I had App State 4-1 to win the conference. I know that I've got a ticket downstairs in the safe for anybody that wants to come by the house. I'll show it off to them. But no, App State is going to be the play against ULL. And, we'll see if the coach that will not be named actually shows up this weekend.
All right. Before we go 3 and out, stink of the week here. I'll do this quickly. Florida State. Florida is a 3-point favorite. I played Florida -2. Still like them at -3.
Yeah.
Emory Jones is out for the year. That means we're getting AR-15. I've loved this Florida State team with Jordan Travis. They're playing really well. Their offense is playing really well. Florida is going like this. They fired Dan Mullen. Will they show up for this game? I think both teams have 5 wins, right? Both teams playing for bowl eligibility. What will they? Who will show up? You would think that Florida State definitely is. They're trending up. Florida's trending up. This is a rivalry game. All these kids know each other. It's Florida State. I think everyone's going to show up. And Florida is a much more talented team. With a look at headline for this, 2 touchdowns?
Yeah.
And now you're getting 3. You're getting AR-15. Mullen is no longer there to hold him back. Hopefully Emory Jones is okay. I think he tore his ACL today. So I just think this is too low. This line's too low for the talent that Florida has. Maybe I'll try to get out if they get a lead and try to middle this because who knows where there's a lot of unknown with play calling and things of that nature, but I think there's too much value to pass up on Florida, but the line does smell. Any thoughts there?
100% agree with you. I'm on Florida. If you go through the play log of Florida against Missouri, I don't want to come out and say that I think Dan Mullen was trying to get fired, but he was there was some of the most odd play calls I've ever seen. It's almost as if he wanted the worst thing to happen. There's usage of timeouts. There's a whole sequence in the game. It's out there on Twitter. I've seen it floating around. I've actually seen a video of it. I think now that Dan Mullen is gone is a good thing for this program. Whoever the interim coach situation is, I don't think that adds to the value, but there is enough talent at Florida to cover and almost beat Alabama. It's not like the players are gone. Grantham's
40 days ago.
Yeah. So way too much value on the Gators here. And that toxic environment just had all the cancer cut out of it. I expect the Gators to show up.
Yep, I agree. All right, before we get out of here, let's go 3 and out. All right, let's start first down. Favorite Overdog and Moneyline Underdog Parlay. I'll start. Favorite Overdog. For those who are new, that's just our favorite of the weekend. One last time. Brocktober, baby. Brockvember. Iowa State with all those seniors against, I know TCU has 5 wins. Different coach. They've won their Super Bowl against Baylor. They've checked out. All those seniors at Iowa State. They haven't got a bounce all year long. They could have won almost every game that they lost. But I think they show up in Ames, and I think they put it on TCU. That's my favorite. As far as my favorite underdog money line, I am going to go with my boy, our boy, Steve Adazio, Colorado State against Nevada. Look, I show value in this number. Nevada's got to be deflated. They're playing for nothing. They had an outside shot before losing in triple overtime to Air Force of the conference championship. That's the second straight deflating losses that they've had. Now they're going on the road to Colorado State. They already have 7 wins. Carson Strong had some knee issues. He's been limping around a little bit. Don't be surprised if he or some of the other pros sit on Saturday. I show value in the number regardless. Colorado State should be able to move the ball on the ground here, and I like the Rams. How about you? Favorite Overdog and Underdog money line?
Yeah, Overdog for me. Overdog, Underdog for me is going to be 2 teams that have been cashing for us, and we will continue to play them. Wyoming is almost a 10-point favorite. You can find 9.5 around out there going up against Hawaii team that needs this win to go to a bowl. They're coming to the mainland. They're going to go play in this altitude. And that is a really, really bad situation to try and get your 6th win against Craig Bowl, who's now going bowling, but he's trying to, add a little bit more to his plate. This is a Hawaii team that 2 weeks ago lost to UNLV and was given a turnover in that game. They lost 27-13 to UNLV. They just had a shootout 50-45 against Colorado State, a team that Wyoming absolutely dominated. The odds makers and the market cannot catch up to what Craig Bowl is doing with this Wyoming program. This is a team I had a season win total over, and they're just now getting hot. So Wyoming's not had issues with Hawaii in the past. I expect them to roll here. Underdog, I've already said it. North Texas, Seth Luttrell is playing
green, baby.
Yeah, I mean, he is playing for a paycheck. He needs to put food on the table in Denton, Texas. And UTSA, believe it or not, one of the worst second order win totals in the nation. Stuckey called them a fraud, and I started doing some research on it. This team is 10-0, but they're more like a 7-win team. They have had so many post-game
two prayer wins, and then they played like nobodies.
Yeah. And, their post-game win expectancy, if you accumulate all that up, it's not even close to 10 wins. It's more around 7, a little bit less. So this is a North Texas team that is hungry. This is a UTSA team that has overlooked to a conference championship game that they will host. So no interest in this game whatsoever. I think North Texas wins outright.
All right, second down, our favorite Friday bet. Yeah, my favorite bet on Friday, wrote this up, talked about it earlier, Boise State. I don't think the market is accounting for how much better this defense has been. Avalos, after the bye, made some personnel changes. They've started to grasp the scheme. Interior defensive line is healthy. This defense is rolling. Their offense can make a few more plays than the San Diego State offense. 2 great special teams units. A 9 a.m. game in Carson, California. Practically no home field advantage. San Diego State has gotten away with so many close wins. A couple in multiple overtimes. I think there's 6-0 one-possession games. Catches up to them here. Boise State gets it done. Broncos keep it rolling. How about you? Favorite bet on Friday?
Yeah, Friday we're going to go to my hometown of Fayetteville, Arkansas, and we're going to bet on Arkansas in the first half. This is a game that's moved from 14 up to 16 for the full game. Arkansas consistently shows up and scores early and often in games. It's a very physical, rush-dominated offensive attack that Missouri's just not going to be ready for whatsoever. Missouri team that may be on hangover from getting Dan Mullen fired and winning their 6th game of the season and making a bowl. Keep in mind, Missouri's bowl game last year was canceled. These kids under Drinkwitz have not been to postseason play because of a COVID-19 cancellation last year. So a lot of big partying going on in Columbia. Tough trip down for the Battle Line Trophy, a game that Arkansas is heavily motivated to win because they've only won once since this trophy was created, since 2015. Missouri does not have the defensive tools to push KJ Jefferson into passing downs. They do not have the secondary to keep up with Treylon Burks. Arkansas is going to roll in this game, and they're going to get started early because of the hangover effect on Missouri. Arkansas first half.
And one remaining task. That's our favorite Saturday bet. All right, for my favorite bet on Saturday, I'm going with Boston College plus 4.5 at home against Wake Forest. This is a game I make under 1. I think Wake Forest's defensive issues have been exposed over the past couple weeks. When you make Clemson's offense look good, you got major problems. Anyone and everyone can move the ball up and down the field, especially on the ground, which BC likes to do. And hey, when BC wants to throw it, they got a future potential NFL quarterback back in Phil Jerkovich. He can make some explosive plays. Look, Wake's going to get their points. They always will. But Boston College does have a pretty good pass defense that I think can get some key stops here. This number is just inflated. And I think it's going to come right down to the wire. Wouldn't shock me to see another Wake Forest field goal game. But I think BC might get it done this time. Give me the Eagles. Where are you going for your favorite Saturday bet?
Take me to the Iron Bowl. I'm going to take a first half over in Alabama and Auburn. This is Brian Harsin is under a lot of fire for his play calling against South Carolina. He consistently scores points early with offensive coordinator Mike Bobo, 14 points in the first quarter against South Carolina, and then 3 points for the rest of the game. This has been something that's happened for the whole entire season, where Auburn gets points up early, defenses adjust, and then they shut Auburn down. And while I don't want to have anything to do with an Alabama point spread that is inflated by an entire touchdown, I do think a first half over is in play because the script that Harsin builds often works. Now, on the Alabama side, they're going to be able to pick apart an Auburn defense that is just crumbling, especially when you look at what South Carolina did. South Carolina was able to come back against Auburn because they were able to avoid Roger McCreary and Smoke Monday in the secondary and pick apart the rest of the defense. That's now on tape for Bill O'Brien, offensive coordinator of Alabama, and for Nick Saban. And you can bet that Bryce Young, who is as accurate and competing for a Heisman Trophy, will find his spots. There will be plenty of explosive plays. And this is a spot where there's just going to be a lot of points in the Iron Bowl to start off before Alabama makes adjustments on both sides of the ball and takes complete control. But I do like lots of points to be scored in the first half of the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, Auburn's Super Bowl too, and their kickers hurt, so you could see them going 4th downs. You probably will see trick plays here, and the whole 9 yards. All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks as always for joining me, Colin. Thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate your support. What a weekend we have coming up. And then, we have conference championships and bowl season. What a time to be alive. Excited to experience it with all of you, and hopefully can bring you lots of winners. Enjoy your holidays. Happy Thanksgiving. We will catch you on Twitter. Make sure, by the way, you subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy, subscribe again. Leave a 5-star review. It really helps us out. We'll do giveaways next week on the recap episode. 959 Bad Beat. If you need to call in and yell about anything over the weekend, South Carolina fans, yell about Colin if you want. And Big Bets on Campus Live. Friday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Myself, Colin, and Brett McMurphy will share our favorite bets of the day and go through a couple of the marquee games. Thanks for listening again. We'll catch y'all later. Cheers.
Peace out.